Hello, Oscar. Grandpa here, and of course, Moosey. Hello, Moosey. You gonna say hello to Oscar? Yeah, hi. Hi, Oscar. Moosey's been very good. He's keeping me warm here. It's a little cold of a day here in the old United Kingdom. And it's lots of love from Granny too, and from Auntie Anna. So, excitingly, we're going to read you more about how to train your dragon. I hope you enjoyed that, Oscar, the first reading last time. But first of all, I have to say, well done. Congratulations for reading your Red Dragons poem at school and getting a fantastic certificate. I think Mummy and Daddy are very proud of you. Granny and Grandpa and Auntie Anne, everyone else is proud of you too. So absolutely well done. So let's crack on with some reading, shall we? And if you remember, Hiccup, remember he was the Viking. He's going to be a big leader one day. And he and his friends had to choose their dragon. And the Viking, there's a table here of the Viking dragons and their eggs. The common or garden and the basic brown. The common or garden and the basic brown are so similar that they can be dealt with together. These are the most familiar breeds, the ones we instantly think of when we say dragons. They are poor hunters, but they're easy to train. These dragons are the best kind for family pets. You can have a dragon for a family pet. Although, as with a lion or tiger, they should never be left unsupervised with very young children. I think Annabelle might be a bit scared, don't you, Oscar? So here are the statistics. Colours are green and yellow, all shades of brown. They're armed with basic teeth and claws. The fear factor is 3. The attack factor is 3. They have speed of 4, size of 4, and disobedience of 1. So they're actually not very disobedient. So, in half an hour's time, you will be a Viking warrior with your faithful serpent at your side, or breakfasting with Woden in Valhalla with dragon's teeth in your bottom. Ooh, wow, screamed Gobber with horrible enthusiasm. Death or glory, yelled Gobber. Death or glory, yelled 8 boys back at him fanatically. Death, thought Hiccup and Fishleg sadly. Gobber paused dramatically with the horn to his lips. There they all are, look, they're all crying out. And they've got their Viking hats on too with the horns. Wow. I think this could possibly be the worst moment of my life so far, thought Hiccup to himself as he waited for the blast of the horn. And if they shout much louder, we're going to wake up those dragons before we even start. Gobber blew the horn. So what happened next? Well, it's chapter 2, Inside the Dragon Nursery. You have probably guessed by now that Hiccup was not your natural Viking hero. For a start, he didn't look like a hero. There he is. There's Hiccup. He looks like a pretty ordinary sort of guy, doesn't he? Somebody like Snotblout, for instance, was tall, muscly, covered in skeleton tattoos, and already had the beginnings of a small moustache. This consisted of a few straggly yellow hairs clinging to his upper lip, and was deeply unpleasant to look at, but still impressively manly for a boy not yet 13. Hiccup was on the small side, and had the kind of face that was almost entirely unmemorable. He did have heroic hair, which was a very bright red. Well, it's like your hair, isn't it, Oscar? Well, not quite bright red, and stood up vertically, however much you tried to wet it down with seawater. But nobody ever saw that because it was hidden. Nobody ever saw it because it was hidden under his helmet most of the time. Of course, he wears a Viking helmet, doesn't he? You would never have picked Hiccup out of those 10 boys to be the hero of this story. Snotlout was good at everything and a natural leader. Dog's Breath was as tall as his father and could do amusing things like farting to the tune of Burke National Anthem. And there's Dog's Breath there, look. Oh dear, he does look a bit odd, doesn't he? Hiccup was just absolutely average, the kind of unremarkable, skinny, freckled boy who was easy to overlook in a crowd. So when Gobber blew the horn and moved out of sight to find a comfortable rock to sit on and eat his mussel and tomato sandwich, Snotlight pushed Hiccup out of the way and took charge. "Okay, listen up, boys," he whispered in a menacing fashion. "I'm in charge, not the useless, and anybody who objects gets a knuckle sandwich from Dog's Breath the Durbrain." "Ugh," grunted Dog's Breath, pounding his fists together in happy excitement. Dog's Breath was Snotlight's chief sidekick and a great big gorilla of a boy. "Bash him, Dog's Breath, to show what I mean." Dog's Breath was delighted to oblige. He gave Hiccup a shove that sent him sprawling headfirst into the snow, then ground his face in it. "Pay attention," hissed Snot. That doesn't sound very nice, does it, Oscar? "Pay attention," hissed Snotlight. The boys dragged their eyes away from Dog's Breath and Hiccup and paid attention. "Rope yourselves together. The best climber should go first." "Well, that's you, of course, Snotlight," said Fishlegs. "You're the best at everything, aren't you?" Snotlight looked at Fishlegs suspiciously. It was difficult to tell whether Fishlegs was laughing at him or not because of his squint. "That's right, Fishlegs," said Snotlight. "I am. And just in case he had been laughing at him, bash him, Dog's Breath." While Dog's Breath pushed Fishlegs down to join Hiccup in the snow, Snotlight bossily ordered everyone to rope themselves together. Hiccup and Fishlegs were the last to be tied on, just behind a flushed and triumphant Dog's Breath. "Oh, brilliant," muttered Fishlegs. "I'm about to enter a cave full of man-eating reptiles, tied up to 8 complete maniacs." "If we get to the cave," said Hiccup nervously, looking at the sheer black cliff. Hiccup put the lighted torch between his teeth to leave his hands free and started climbing after the others. It was a perilous climb. The rocks were slippery with snow, and the other boys were thoroughly overexcited, making the ascent far too quickly. At one point, Clueless missed his footing and fell, luckily onto Dog's Breath, who caught him by the back of the trousers and heaved him back onto the rock again, before he brought the whole lot of them down. When they finally made it to the mouth of the cave, Hiccup looked down briefly at the sea, pounding the rocks way below, and swallowed very, very hard. "Untie the ropes," ordered Snotlight, his eyes popping with excitement at the thought of the dangers to come. "Hiccup goes into the cave first because he is the son of the chief," he sneered, "and if any of the dragons are awake, he'll be first to know about it. Once we're in the cave, it's every man for himself. Only the strong can belong." "Oh, Oscar, how do you fancy that? Going into a cave, searching for your dragon. Whoa." Although he wasn't your usual mindless thug of a hooligan, Hiccup wasn't a wimp either. Being frightened is not the same thing as being a coward. Maybe he was as brave as anyone else who was there, because he went to catch a dragon despite knowing what dragons are like. And when he had climbed perilously to the mouth of the cave and had found that inside there was a long twisty tunnel, he still went down it, despite not being too keen on the long twisty tunnels with dragons at the end of them. Can you imagine that, Oscar? The tunnel was dripping and clammy. At times it was high enough for the boys to walk upright. Then it would close down into narrow claustrophobic holes, so the boys could only just squeeze through, squirming on their stomachs with the flares held in their mouths. After 10 long minutes of walking and crawling into the heart of the cliff, the stench of dragon, a salty stink of seaweed and old mackerel heads, got stronger and stronger, until finally it became unbearable and the tunnel opened out into a ginormous cavern. The cavern was full of more dragons than Hiccup could ever have imagined existed. They were every possible colour and size, and they included all the species that Hiccup had heard of, and quite a few more that he hadn't. Hiccup started sweating as he looked around him at pile after pile of the animals, draped over every available surface, even hanging upside down from the roof like giant bats. They were all fast asleep, and most of them were snoring in unison. Can you imagine what a dragon does when it snores, Oscar? Wow. This was a sound so loud and so deep that it seemed to penetrate right into Hiccup's body and vibrate around his insides, churning his stomach and bowels and forcing his heart to beat at the same slow dragon pulse. If just one of these countless creatures were to wake up, it would raise the alarm to the others and the boys would meet a horrible death. Hiccup had once seen a deer that had wandered too close to Wild Dragon Cliff, torn to pieces in a matter of minutes. Oh dear, that sounds horrible. Hiccup closed his eyes. I will not think about it, he said to himself. I will not. None of the other boys were thinking about it. Ignorance is very useful in such circumstances. Their eyes were popping with excitement as they walked through the cave, hands over their noses to keep out the revolting smell, looking for the biggest dragon they could find that would fit in their basket. They left the torches in a pile at the entrance. The cavern was already well lit by the glowworms, huge sluggish animals dotted here and there, that shone with a steady yet dim fluorescence, like a low-watt light bulb. And the flame huffers gave off extra little bursts of light that flickered on and off as they breathed in and out. Predictably, most of the boys headed towards the plug uglies of the dragon world. Snotlight made a big fuss about grabbing a vicious-looking, monstrous nightmare, smiling nastily at Hiccup as he did so. Snotlight was the son of Baggy Bum the Beer Belly, Stoik the vast younger brother. He was intending to get rid of Hiccup sometime in the future, so that he, Snotlight, would become chief of the hairy hooligan tribe, and a gruesome and terrifying chief, as Snotlight meant to be, would need a properly awesome dragon. Warthog and Dodgebreath got into a loudly whispered fight over a Gronkle, a heavily armoured brute with fangs like kitchen knives sticking out in such numbers that it couldn't keep its mouth shut. Dodgebreath won, then managed to drop it as he was trying to bundle it into his basket. The weaponry of the beast made a horribly loud clatter as it landed on the floor of the cavern. The Gronkle opened its evil crocodile eyes. Everybody held their breath. What was going to happen? The Gronkle stared ahead. It was difficult to tell from its blank expression whether it was awake or fast asleep. Hiccup realised in an agony of suspense that the gossamer thin third eyelid was still down. And there it stayed for a few heart-stopping moments until it slowly closed its upper eyelids again. Amazingly, not one of the other dragons woke up. A few grumbled groggily before making themselves comfy again, but most were in such a stupor that they barely even stirred. Hiccup let out his breath slowly. Maybe these dragons were so dead to the world, in other words asleep, that nothing would wake them. He swallowed hard, muttered a prayer to Loki, the patron saint of sneaky exploits, and edged forward cautiously to grab the most unconscious-looking dragon, so he could get out of this nightmare as fast as possible. So here's a Gronkle. Look, there is a Gronkle. The Viking dragons and their eggs. The Gronkle is the plug ugly of the dragon world, but what it lacks in looks, it makes up for on the battlefield. They can be slow and, dare I say it, stupid, and sometimes they get so fat they are unable to take off. They are also prone to dragon acne, in other words, itches. Statistics. This is the Gronkle. Snot green, bogey beige, pooey brown. Ooh, what do you think, Oscar? Armed with all the best in dragon weaponry, fangs like daggers, extra spike on neck, ball with spikes on the end of tail. Fear factor 7, attack 8, speed 8, size 7, disobedience 5. So, there we go. My goodness me. We have read a little bit more about how to train your dragon and how do you think Hiccup's going to become a Viking hero? I'm not sure about that, but I know he will, because there are going to be lots of books in this series, and Hiccup is the big star. Anyway, Oscar, again, congratulations on reading your poem. That was brilliant. And lots of love to Mummy and Daddy, and to your little sister, Annabelle. A big wave to Annabelle as well. And lots of love from me, and from Granny, and from Moosey, and Auntie Anna. And hope you're having a lovely day. Lots of love, Oscar. Bye for now. Bye.